Then of course you want to put pieces, just like I showed in the videos, up against the ridge pole. They can get shorter and shorter as you go down. That's why it's easier to make the tripod shelter and throw on the material, just like for my pen shelter, as much as you can, as much waterproofing as you can. The more material, the more grass, the more leaves and so forth means more waterproofing. And if you build the tripod underneath canopy of vegetation, a tree canopy and so forth, you are going to get some rain protection from the canopy, because trees can provide quite good rain protection. So you can get half the rain protection from canopy and put the roof on, and that's where the floor is just as important as the roof, because you want to get off the floor. If it rains, the water's going to seep in and so forth. I talk about the floor in videos online, and we'll talk about the floor a bit more. And another reason why your ridgepole needs to be a good 10, 11, 12 feet long is because, especially if you're going to put a floor in terms of a raised platform to get yourself 2, 3, 4, 5 inches off the ground, I just assume the last 2 feet at the end is dead space. You can't get your feet in there, so you assume 2 feet dead space, a 6 foot long body, there's 8 feet, and then you want at least 2 feet between your head and the opening. So there's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 feet, just like that. That's exactly why you need a nice long ridgepole to get plenty of coverage for your body, and assuming the dead space down the end, because you can't stick your feet down the end there. And by propping up the end of the ridgepole like that with a log, piece of wood, a rock, something similar like that, make sure it's stable, you can potentially reduce the length of the long ridgepole, which I recommend, because you're solving the dead space problem, space you can't use or put your feet into, by having that long ridgepole. So perhaps a combination of both to prop up the end, you can solve that problem of the dead space and potentially reduce the length of the ridgepole. Now you can quite easily convert your tripod shelter, especially if you're using the dimensions I talk about, into my full pen shelter. Step 5, those series of videos I have already online, a fully self-supporting structure. So you have your tripod. If you just lift up the end of the ridgepole, step 1, add a tripod in there, so support the ridgepole on a tripod, and then put a third tripod support piece on the other side where the A-frame is to make a full tripod. And by the addition of 4 more poles, you have a full self-supporting structure by pen shelter step 5. I'm going to come back to the step 5 pen shelter later in the series of videos, but that's how easy it is to convert your tripod shelter into a much more bigger kick-ass shelter, just like that, the full pen shelter. And here are the key features of a tripod shelter. It must support your weight. You should be able to grab onto the connection point and do chin-ups on that tripod shelter, then it's nice and strong. You must have a floor. Either the best floor is a raised timber platform, the sort of videos I already show online, or at the very least, like I said, GFC material, the greenest, freshest, cleanest material thrown on the floor to sleep on, or a combination of both. And I think you must, in hot weather, orientate the shelter so you have shade for the opening. You want shade in hot weather to conserve yourself, conserve your moisture and energy and so forth. You need some basic skills. You need to work out where the sun's going to be to get that shade. I think you should follow my dimensions, the 6 foot poles, the long ridge pole. You can prop up the ridge pole at the end, like I said, to perhaps shorten the length of the ridge pole and also to reduce the amount of dead space down the end. And that's going to be my supersize concept, where I'm pretty sure, I haven't tested this, but I'm sure that 2 people can squeeze in there in an emergency. 1 person is going to be fine, but 2 people in an emergency. And in cold weather, you may well want the sun. So orientate towards sun to get the warmth from the sun. And then you can protect the opening, additional poles at the front, more roof over the front to make your opening smaller, protect the opening, to reduce the size of that big A-frame opening, the big A-shape opening, which is the downside of a tripod shelter, that big opening. You can protect the perimeter by building a wall around the shelter, even around your opening, to form an enclosure, a low wall, logs, wood, rocks and so forth. You may give yourself peace of mind and also prevent some creepy crawlies from coming in. You can convert the tripod shelter quite easily into my full pen shelter. There's 13 videos I have online already, by propping up the end of the ridgepole, adding a tripod and adding one more tripod support, so 4 more poles will give you the basic frame of a full pen shelter. So they are the key features to the tripod shelter.